Welcome to Tippcast by the Nenagh Guardian. Hello and welcome to Tippcast here with Shane Brophy here, just adjusting his camera. Shane, how are you doing?
Good now, Shane.
Good, regard. So interesting over the weekend, I suppose Colm Bonner was talking about Tipperary for next year. He's not exactly playing it down, and I, for one, am delighted that he's not just trying to play it down and say, look, this is a 2 or 3 year project. He's talking about, maybe things will click and will be a hard-to-beat team. I'm delighted to hear that sort of talk.
Oh, definitely. I know when I had him on the radio show and in the paper a few weeks ago, I got the same vibe out of him. Like he's like a kid at Christmas. Like he's so thrilled to have this job, and like you can just get the enthusiasm coming across from him, and it's just basic. It's just common sense. I think any Tip supporter listening to him would just agree with everything he says. That they'll buy into him, and I think I'd be surprised if that enthusiasm, that motivation doesn't transmit itself across to the players, like when he does get his hands on them. And look, I suppose, like while we've had a great 11, 12-year run, I would still think that there are certain games that stick out. Maybe we weren't purling the best, but the Tipperary character came out. I would have thought that the 2018 under-21 All-Ireland final, like I think just games like that where it really was raw Tipperary to its fingertips, because like Cork had better hurlers, but we sheer will and determination and character got us out. I think we're going to see more of that from Tip, and you complement that with skill. Jeez, it could take us an awful long way. Like so, I'd be surprised if we don't see Tip having a strong National League. I think we'll have there'll be a bit of positivity there next year. There'll be guys motivated. There'll be guys given an opportunity. What Liam said, like so many young lads are going to get a chance. But as we're saying, the players have got to take it. Like they're not going to be given 2, 3, 4 goals. Like you've got to maybe in the first 1 or 2, and after that, shape up or shape out. Like but like it's hard to give lads time. Like I suppose when you're 22, 23, you should be mature enough, ready to step up. Maybe 19, 20, it'll be difficult. Like, but the older you get, the more mature you get. You got to understand that opportunities aren't plentiful. You got to take it when they come.
Yeah, I suppose unlike the previous management, he's a real opportunity to. Well, I know Liam Sheedy did the first year, but obviously the last 2 years were heavily curtailed by COVID. But he's going to have an opportunity to get these players in over the winter, play them in challenge matches, have a load of in-house matches, go through the entirety of a league and have a right good chance to get those players going before Waterford next year. The whole backroom team is something that we're all looking at and wondering, and there's a few names floating around, some names that were in the previous regime, others that are not. And then even we see reports in the Examiner about Carbo Carlin. Is he going to be involved with Limerick, which makes you wonder, what are Tipperary going to be doing S&C wise? So that's another thing for him to look after. And like, if you're not, I interviewed Michael Fennelly there yesterday, and I was asking him about the advantage of having a sports science background. And he was saying that, if you were a manager coming in and you didn't have an idea about S&C and all that kind of stuff, it can be hard to know if you've necessarily got the right guy or not. So anyway, look, that's just another challenge for Colm Bonner. And I think most people in Tipperary at this stage are happy to kind of trust that things will go the right way there. But getting that backroom team is going to be massive, because it has to be whatever modern Tipperary hurling is going to look like. It probably won't be the exact same as what Waterford are doing or Limerick are doing. No. Nor should it be exactly, but it should blend a little bit of both. So it is crucial, like, because his entire next 3 years might depend so much on what happens in the next few weeks when he puts that team together.
Oh, definitely. And I'd love to see, I know we spoke about it off air, like that. Some Carborough Caroline was very good. Cian O'Neill was very good. Who else was in there before? Lucas Kersenstein. But there were more or less S&C coaches for hire, but like right next door in the Sarsfields Social Centre is Setanta College. Like, and I'd love to see nearly a semi-permanent tie-up between Tipperary County Board and there, whereas. Okay, it doesn't have to be the same guy every year, but a person, male or female, there's very good S&C female coaches out there, but that, like if a young lad or 14 or a young lad of 21 goes into is S&C through Setanta College, that they all their stats are kept on file, like, and targets and stuff. And like, I think most inter-county teams, Dublin are in DCU, Cork are in Cork IT a lot of the time. Like, you've got to be taking advantage of some of these colleges that are on your doorstep and their expertise, and like create some kind of a formal link where, okay, if X is your S&C coach for 1 or 2 years and he maybe moves on, that okay, somebody steps in, but they have the information that guy X had for the previous 2 years, like, so things like that, like that's so important. I think that's a lot of where Limerick are ahead of the curve in terms of hurling. Like, they have all that information built up for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, I look there at Meath at the moment, and they're after announcing a guy, Barry Horgan. He's to head a newly created role of general manager of age grade football. And, Meath have had some success at that age grade in the last few years. And you wonder, is that going to sort of pull things together a little bit more again? I look at Cork, they've had Aidan O'Connell as the head of high performance GA down there. And, obviously we've looked at what Limerick have done in the last few years also. For Tipperary, you just hope that plans can start to move in that direction. If talks, if they haven't already kind of discussed doing that, you'd hope it would happen in the next year or two. I even remember a couple of years ago when I was going through this training thing out in St. David's CBS in Artane. Went out there, and there was these coaches that were involved at Dublin at the time, including Killenaule O'Connor, who's involved at the Dublin Hurlers now, and she was involved with us in Coola. But there was like this guy who would probably be at least number 50 down the pecking order in terms of Dublin footballers, and I've never seen him play for Dublin football since about 5 years. Like, this was 5 years ago. And he's in there doing this program that's related to Dublin GA. He's probably in there for an hour or two getting the right stuff done. And it actually just, like, you can see him, he's a very good player in Dublin club football, but he's never going to get near Dublin GA. But you have this guy doing that level of professionalism who isn't near it. So then you wonder, if that's something that Tipperary could kind of do. And maybe there are aspects of it happening, but it's just something that is probably going to be so key for any club or anyone that's at the very top end. Another thing I wanted to mention is Micheál Donoghue is obviously, he seems to be out of the race now for the Galway manager. That was all the talk there last night.
My chair is slipping here underneath at the moment, so
you're like a man under pressure there.
Oh, stop! No, it's a second flip chair here now. I'm trying to keep it stiff. I think it's set now, so it is. So
yeah, you need to get the old rocking chair going there. They're solid enough jobs. But Micheál Donoghue, he seems to be out of the Galway race now. I believe that talks broke down. Do you think there'd be even an outside chance? And I'd love people to get their comments in there, that Tipperary might say, geez, I wonder would he come back in and get involved in a second stint? He was obviously there, was it 6 years ago?
Yeah, sure. Look, you think if you were any kind of a inter-county manager and you had a guy like him there available, then look, it does look like he's not going to get the Galway job. But why wouldn't you tap into his expertise? And look, he's an outside head, I suppose outside personnel. We all know in clubs they're very objective. Like, they don't know the ins and outs of what's going on. They can have a very, very neutral view of things. So I'm sure Tip, even Clare, I wouldn't rule a lot of counties maybe looking to get him involved, even maybe some of the smaller ones, maybe getting him in as an advisor or something like. So like you'd hate to see, I suppose, even for the likes of Galway, allowing him to go to waste. Like, I don't know if the hows and whys of what how it hasn't worked out for him, considering a lot like Liam Cahill here. I think most people in Galway wanted Liam Donoghue back. So how it hasn't worked out, I don't know. And it looks like it's going to be between Jeffrey Linsky and the under 20 manager, Brian Hanley. Like, so I think I'd be surprised if Davy Fitzgerald is there. I just don't know. I don't know if he's a natural fit with Galway. Like, I just when you think back to how the Gerlach Nan era there, it just didn't work, and you're probably inviting that same level of, well, you might enthusiasm, but you're bringing a lot of lights focused on you as well. And I don't know if that suit the Galway. Does that suit the Galway way? I think they like to go under the radar and keep things in house. And I don't know if you get that with Davy. Like, you'll be able to bring a lot of focus on the county for him alone right before you even start looking at the team. Like, so.
Yeah, they just had an outside manager in Shane O'Neill. It hasn't worked out, obviously. So there might be an element of reluctance to go outside again. But actually, there's part of me that thinks Saoirse Bulfin, who's been his running mate with his previous jobs, he's involved with Castlegar, and then you have Louis Mulqueen with Lean Mellows. So there's always an outside chance for one of these clubs to propose.
Especially if you have TJ Ryan there with St. Thomas's for a few years, like he might be tempted to cut his teeth, but like I suppose will Galway go back to Limerick for a second time? I don't think so. Like so.
Yeah. Hey, let's jump on to one of the games of the weekend in the Tipperary Club Championship. We know that things are kind of, we very much know the situation now in terms of the knockouts. The top seeds are going to be Thurles, Killenaule, and Mullinahone and Killarwan. The second seeds are Upchurch, Jumbane, Loughmore, Clonoulty, and Borris-Ileigh, with a first preliminary quarter final on the 10th of October. So Killenaule, who were South champions, they're going to face the second seed. But I was fairly blown away by what happened between Thurles and Upchurch, Jumbane and Templemore. Not because it was the greatest game I ever saw. It finished up 324 to 120. So Sars won by 10 points. But it was just that drama during injury time at the end of the game. Sars were 11 points up. Then Upchurch pulled it back to 10. And at that stage, scoring difference because of Drum's result against their Organic Harty down a hill, it meant that a 10-point loss would get Upchurch through. And then Ronan Maher scores a point from 100 yards. Textbook Ronan Maher, flick of the wrist, but sure takes off like a rocket anyway. And then Paul Ryan, 68 minutes out of 60, a free on the sideline. And Paul Ryan, who took over from Pádraig Green taking the frees, you kind of almost thought, he'll definitely knock it over anyway. And he duly did. And losing by 10 points, but Upchurch through. It's a bit of a mad one, isn't it? Because how did they even go into the knockouts now? They got hammered, but they're through.
They're true, but I do think of the teams, the three teams that were tied. I think Upchurch would have maybe take more momentum into the quarters. I suppose they knew going into that match that the fair chance they were going to be beaten, so they had to keep the score down as much as they can. And look, you could say that Drom-Inch lost to themselves as they were well ahead of Anacarty at half time and ended up only losing by 2. But look, Drum have just had such a poor year. I think they would have, if they had sneaked into the quarters, they would have limped in there without any form. Just not going well. Whereas Upchurch probably have been on the end of some of these score differences and playoff defeats over the last few years. So they probably think they're due, and look, they can go into the quarterfinals now. And look, they can't play Thurles Sarsfields, so they'll look at Killenaule, they'll look at Killarwan, they'll look at Mullinahone. I think, lads, we can beat. We can't draw probably the best team in it at the moment, but we can certainly. Maybe Killenaule might be maybe a step ahead, but like if they get Mullinahone or Killarwan McDonald's, they'll fancy their chances of getting to a semi-final. I'd have no doubt about it. Look, it's. I suppose, as I did say, I think they were probably due a bit of good fortune there, Upchurch, for maybe a few shortfalls over the last few years.
Yeah, and we had lads writing them off here a couple of rounds ago, didn't we?
Did I?
No, you said they were taking a little bit of a step back, so I'm only.
I thought they did. I suppose the last time Anacarty it probably was a poor result in that respect. But look, I guess we saw with Anacarty, they were well behind Drum and they got it back to a finish. I suppose that heavy loss Anacarty took against Thurles until Tippcast came against them. But in relegation, I think Holy Cross and Mike Arky and Ross Gray, they won't relish taking on Anacarty, and Holy Cross have to play them up first. So it's relegation really comes down to heart and spirit and who has the strongest mentality more than hurling in a greater sense.
And you mentioned that Upchurch can't play the strongest team in the quarterfinals. Yeah. So you're obviously referring to Thurles Sarsfields. Yeah. But I don't know, after watching that game, if I would necessarily consider them the strongest team left in it, because they obviously put up 324, which is a handsome scoreline. But having watched it there, I thought maybe this is a team that's very good at disposing of a team that probably isn't a county challenger in Upchurch. But I have to say, I wasn't overly convinced by them. I didn't think that there's necessarily a fluency from front to back. To me, there's a couple of things that a good, strong team could target and say they can be got at too.
Oh, definitely. I suppose from what we've seen so far, I would think definitely say that they've been the best team in the championship so far. Just you can't maybe beat the likes of Drom and Upchurch and even Loughmore in the mid-championship, and they're doing it pretty comfortably. So I think you have to be given credit for that. But as you say, the quarterfinal is where they were the same last year, and then come the quarterfinal against Nenagh, they just didn't show up. So look, the whoever they draw in the quarter final, that's when you can get a real sense of where Thurles are at. Like, you're probably, who you're looking at, you're like a Borris-Ileigh would be very, very stiff opponent. Clonoulty-Rossmore, right? Loughmore have been drawn out to play Killenaule in that preliminary quarter final on Friday week. So, but unknown form, Loughmore should win that. So, like, you look at Loughmore, Clonoulty, Borris-Ileigh, I think like none of them would be scared of Thurles Sarsfields, and like they'd all have maybe strong defenses as well. Like particularly Borris-Ileigh, like the half back line of Brendan Maher and the two McCormicks, the last like that's as strong as you can get in the county. Like so, look, I definitely think from the quarter final is when we can get a better assessment of where Thurles are at.
And like Paddy Creedon, I thought was good. Pa Burke put away a couple of scores there. He finished his goal very good, or very, very well in the first half. It's like Michael Cahill's midfield. I'm not sure that he was in the game probably as much as he would have wanted. Ronan Maher was obviously a threat in the half back line too. Is there anyone standing out particularly for Thurles in your opinion at the moment?
Not really. I just think it's a very even team. I suppose it's just the new faces, the Jack Darby's, the Shawnee Butlers, the Paddy Creedons. I think they've been crying out for a long time just for a bit of youth and a bit of freshness, and we're seeing that there. And putting Dennis Maher at full forward, it sort of gives them an out ball there as well, where maybe a few years in tight games, maybe they had the sweet forwards, but maybe they just didn't have the bull of a ball winner. Now they have two in Maher and Paddy Creedon. Like Paddy, for a 19-year-old, is just so strong, like, and he's like, although we didn't see maybe the best of him for the Tip under-20s this year, like he still has another year's eligibility. He's going to be, like, he just seems to have all the physical attributes if he stays developing and his style of hurling that he could definitely play a senior down the road. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, in the other match then for Drom-Inch and Éire Óg going into relegation, just like when I was watching Drom this year, they never fully got going. They don't probably have enough to complement. I mean, Johnny Ryan is obviously still knocking over scores there, but even they don't quite have enough to complement Callan up there either. And like I mentioned, both of those players, and neither of them are going to be around forever. So I'm just wondering where Drom are going.
No, I was just looking at the team sheet. Like Shamey only scored 2 points and threes. I think he was out in the half forward line. I suppose, look, it's been a difficult year for Shamey, and look, when he's not firing, like Drom are always going to be a lesser team because of it. I just, as I think I've said in previous podcasts, I think Drom have so many, like their second team are in an intermediate quarter final, like, and they have a lot of guys at the same level, maybe below the likes of David Collins, Johnny Ryan, but I think look, every team would like to stay in the championship as long as they can, but I just think it was a year that Drom has never fired for them, and I suppose, look, I don't know what they would have offered in the knockout stages. I think from their point of view, maybe they're better off. They're out of relegation. They finished third. The year is over, but they definitely need to go back and assess like where they can find a growth over the next few years. Like they did win a county minor A championship 2 years ago, so they have players, like, but they're as you said, there's definitely something missing. Like, because look, they were well beaten by Killenaule in the county semi-final last year. Personally, they shouldn't have got there. I thought Borris-Ileigh lost that quarter final rather than Drom won it. Like, so, and look, that's a local derby. Drom are always going to be up for it anyway. So I do think Drom are a bit off title contenders at the moment. I think this year proved it.
Yeah, still no Sickner to go out by a point. For Éire Óg, they're into a second relegation battle in 2 years. So, I mean, how big of a deal is that for them? Do you think that it's just a case they'll get through that again, or where are they going?
I think, look, I wouldn't fear, like they were in 2 relegation battles last year in senior hurling and senior football, and they survived both. So if you were to say, Anton, they're battle hardened and they know what's coming, like, and as I say, I look at the 4 teams in it themselves: Holy Cross, Roscrea, Mycarthy. If there was the one team I would say would know how to dig themselves out of a hole, it'd be Anacarty, like, and whereas I would say Roscrea, Mycarthy, and Holy Cross are 3 teams that would have had very, very good underage teams the last few years, probably have better days ahead of them, but how mentally strong are they to get through these relegation games? Like, it'd be fascinating if Mycarthy up against Roscrea and Éire Óg and Anacarty against Holy Cross. And like, I remember down through the years going to relegation matches, they were nearly better than semi-finals and finals, but you just see the raw emotion of lads. There's nearly more at stake because you don't want to be relegated. It's I don't know, there's a stigma in Tip. I don't know where it's in Dublin. If you lose your grading, as if you're just letting the whole parish down. Like it's so you just don't want to be going down. So look, it's going to be a setback for whoever drops down. I would have said if Anacarty go down, it mightn't be as easy for them to maybe get back up quickly as the other three would, because they do have maybe more players that could develop in the next few years and get better again. Like so, but I'm sure I would say on current form, I would say Mike Harkey probably should get out of it because look, they lost narrowly to Brackens, lost narrowly to Loughmore and Killenaule. Like I'd say if they were in any other group, they could have been a quarter final. They were just in a very, very difficult group. But it's just if you get in a losing habit, it's hard to figure out how you win it too. Like even though you lost games narrowly and played well in all three, but still they weren't able to win any of them.
Yeah, this is the thing. Just jumping on to Group 2, Mullinahone, they beat Toomevara. And I'd say when people saw the scoreline, probably eyebrows raised there, 223 to 113. So 13-point loss for a finish. The red card was a big one here for Colm Canning. He got a second yellow before half-time. But Jack Shelley really stood out with 2-5. Towards the end of the game, Mikey O'Shea was winning frees. Obviously, Owen Kelly's up there centre forward, knocking over the frees all day. And Paul Curran still soldiering away at full back, getting the job done. Were you fairly shocked by that scoreline?
In terms, if you're looking at the scoreline, definitely, because I would have thought it'd be tighter. I was actually at this game, but in terms of how the match turned out, fully merited win for Mullinahone. I think, you can point to the red card, but I think Toomevara are going to win that game anyway at halftime. I just thought their attitude coming into the game was all wrong. Like Mullinahone played the match like it was a knockout game. They had to win that game to have a shot at getting through. Toom were sort of in that scenario where even a narrow loss and they probably would have been all right. And they sort of played without an edge right from the first whistle, and they could never get it going after that. And like you've played in matches and seen matches down through years. If you know after 5 minutes whether a team is at the races or not. I could sense after 5 minutes that Toom are not there. Like look, if they could start the match all over again, they would. And I think if they played each other next weekend, it could be a 2 or 3 point game either way. It's just, I'd say if Owen Breslan and the backroom team could have the match back again to do things differently in terms of making sure the guys were fully focused, was that edge Mullinahone had was the difference. Like they were right up for it from the go. They were loud on the field, encouraged each other. Jack Shelley at full forward was absolutely brilliant. Whether his body is able to stand up to the rigours in our inter-county, I don't know, but I'd love to see Colm Bonner giving him a chance maybe in training to bring him in. He's diminutive, but he's such a brilliant team player and he's so unselfish and he just brings guys into the play as well. Like he's just, for his sake, he deserves at least an opportunity to see can he do it. Like, and I thought he was excellent. Mikey O'Shea, looks like a guy that has trimmed down. Like, I wouldn't say he was carrying weight last year. He looked too bulky, but definitely this year, he's a lot more. How would you say?
Not lean.
To slim down. He's more leaner. That's a bit more pace to him. Then, like he's an excellent player. Like Owen Kelly does what he does the whole time. It's not. But from Mullinahone, they're a very, very even team. That a couple of subs that come on were very, very impressive too. So look, like I would think of the top seeds, they're probably maybe the team that the second seeds would probably want to draw, but like. But in terms of mentality and spirit, they'll be very, very dangerous. Like I'm sure they probably feel that they're ahead of schedule, maybe getting to a quarter final, but they'll probably think at this. I don't think they're good enough yet to win it. Well, I think they'd fancy their chances of at least getting to a semi-final if they repeat that level of performance in 2 weeks' time.
I wonder then about Toomevara, and are they? I mean, obviously, people often think of them through the prism of what the previous generation did and the amount they won, and maybe kind of those expectations sitting their shoulders at times. I mean, I felt that David Young did well up in the forwards, and he scored a brilliant goal, beautiful catch over Paul Curran, and the way he finised it was class.
And he won a second ball over Curran. It's rarely I've seen Curran out muscle like that, and but like I as you say. Young, Darren Delaney, I think Jason Ryan were the only three I thought maybe took the fight to Mullinahone. I thought the rest were very, very disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, even throughout the season, I've been kind of impressed with Josh McCarthy at times. I think, like his athleticism, his driving up the fields. I like that about him. But I just wonder, are there many Toomevara lads that you think are of a county quality? Like I'm sure some people within Toomevara would agree with that, but or think that they are up to that. But I don't know. I just kind of wonder, are they a little bit off the mark now?
Yeah, I don't know whether you agree. They're devoid of a marquee player. Like if you look at them and they're all very steady. I suppose Mark McCarthy would have been the man for a few years, but like he has had a disappointing season. I think Joey Malochney's retirement this year was huge. And he was what 15 from he'd be 33, 34. He's not that old, but God, his presence in that half back line midfield for the last few years is just a class operator, and I think he sort of made everybody else feel more at ease when he was on the field. He was sort of, okay, he'll mind the house. We know if he gets the ball, he'll use it well enough. And maybe just that bit of guile and experience and quality they found it difficult to replace that. I suppose Kenny Ryan would have been probably one of their better underage players the last few years. He's been bedeviled by a injury this year, and we never got to see. He didn't even feature last weekend. Kevin McCarthy only came on as a sub. Like, he's had injury problems. So look, I suppose they could point to that and say, look, we didn't have our best 15 on the field. But like you would say, it was a disappointing campaign for Toom. Like in the North Championship against the Killenaule team, and that were down the Flynn brothers and James Quigley, they shipped to Clipping that night, and they were like, it just. I don't know, every time you talk to them, are about to kick on, they just threw in a performance against Killenaule and against Mullinahone where made you think, God, is that their level, or is there more? I think there's more in them, but just, I'm sure they'd be frustrated as any of what happened last weekend. But like they're better than that, but I just don't think their focus and their motivation just wasn't at the level it needed to be last Saturday.
Yeah, and I would have thought that David Young was very good, but you need other lads stepping up, because you can't have someone who's, I'm guessing, 35, 36 kind of leading the front line all the time. But they needed to avoid losing by more than 5 points, and to lose by 13 is obviously a real kick in the teeth there. So Clonoulty, they had a 122-314 win over Holy Cross. So a flurry of late points got Clonoulty through. So it's not like they've been overly impressive here, even though they're champions just a couple of years ago. Don't know if you'd necessarily have them in the top 2 or 3 here to win the county title.
I don't think so. That's what maybe there was probably there was a long period in the second half when I was in Semple Stadium that Toomevara were going through, even though they were losing, because Clonoulty were losing. So then Clonoulty came with a late flurry, and they've managed to get into the quarterfinals. Yeah, I see they put Timmy Hammersley back on the freeze, and while I think Jack Ryan wasn't going badly on the freeze in the previous games, maybe it's just to try and get Timmy going again. And I think he likes the responsibility of being the go-to guy. And I suppose they have a new goalie this year. Borris-Ileigh fullback is a new player, so they're definitely trying to bring guys through. I think it's a good win for them. I'd agree with you. I don't think they're county quarterfinal champion material. Sorry, county final winning material yet, but they'll give whoever they get the top seed trouble. And if Thurles, they can draw Thurles, Killenaule, or Kilruan McDonough's. They'll have no fear of either of those three. They'd have a decent recent record against Thurles in terms of being competitive against them. They beat Killenaule in a quarter final in Dala, I think the year they won the county final is in 2017. So they got a bit of a clipping of Kilruan 2 years ago, but I don't think there was a fair reflection of Clonoulty on the day. So it'll be, I wouldn't, hard to see them winning it out, but I could definitely see them getting to a semi-final, and if the draw was kind, maybe to a final.
Just to jump back to the group winners there, have you seen a more mental senior club jersey than Mullinahone's electric effort that we saw against Toom?
Yeah, it was mad. It was strange. All right, I know the both teams had to change their jerseys because of a clash, but yeah, it was bit random, all right. I suppose they've gone down the Mayo vibe, where just like you always had Mayo associated with it being a red away jersey. Now it's just gone whatever colour that they move on next year.
They
Like,
pull it out of a lucky bag.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a bit of everything. So I think they'll be, I don't think they'll be able to wear it against, and maybe against Loch, if they draw Loughmore, if that's the way it works out, they'll probably have to change, all right, and it might bring them a bit of luck too.
Yeah, and speaking about Loughmore, the win over JK Brackens, I mean, I was watching this game on the stream on Friday night, and towards the end of the game, it looked like JK Brackens were obviously just trying to force the goal, and it never quite came, and they were picked off once or twice then by Loughmore. But I have to say, like, coming away from it, it's a game we probably all expected Loughmore to win. But I've been very impressed by Brackens this year.
Yeah, no, I'd say I've been maybe a lot like my Carkey. If they were in another group, they might have got out of it. Like, it would have been a tall order. Loughmore have always had their number maybe over the years, and just Loughmore probably just that class of Noel and John McGrath and Evan Sweeney, and that was the difference. Brian McGrath, like that was the difference. I suppose like Paddy Cadell was outstanding. Like, he really took the fight, and you're looking at a player like him. Could he be the fulcrum of a Tip team for 3 or 4 years? Just his mentality and his willingness and his just leadership. I just think he's definitely one. I think Colm Bonner would say, okay, I like the cut of him. Maybe anywhere from 5 to 9 on the field, like, he could do a job. I just thought, I just think Loughmore, Bracken's style of player will only get you so far, I think. Because like even the last 5 minutes, they were still trying to work the ball up the field through the lines. Look, that's the way they're meant to play. Like, but I just don't know, does it get enough out of the likes of Shane Burke and Andrew Ormond, who are stickmen, who are finishers, who they want an early ball into space where they can get out in front of somebody and stick it over the bar. Whereas if you're running the ball in, not only you're bringing yourself forward, but you're bringing other defenders back and you're crowding out the space as well. So, look, I definitely think Brackens need to tweak something side, maybe to make themselves a little more, maybe make it a little more easier for maybe the forwards to do their thing. Like, but definitely,
it's a bit of a catch-22, I would have thought, for them, because you know, some club teams have brilliant players from 1 to 15 and brilliant stickmen from 1 to 15. I'd say they're shy 1 or 2 stickmen over the field. So I think the fact their game plan probably papers over some of the cracks and allows it to be like the sum of the parts rather than the individuals. So in some ways, I admire very much what they're doing. But I know what you're saying too. You do want to get more out of it. Like, Shane Burke wasn't in it from, like, I didn't see all of the game now, but I remember one ball going up to Andrew Ormond and I thought he should have done more with it. But these are talented forwards, you know, Lyndon Fairbrothers there as well. Shane Doyle also. But I do think they're a pretty good team there. And considering they only came up from Seamus O'Reen the year before last. Some of the results they've had and performances they've had, drawn with Killenaule last year, taken to Killenaule to within 2 points earlier this season, now having a pretty good performance again against Loughmore. And just to take up your point on Paddy Cadell, like, the one thing you need with your backs at club level, obviously, but certainly at county level too, is that they can turn and drive out with the ball. And like, when Cadell turns and drives out with the ball, the forwards are just trying to cling on to him to try and stop him bursting out. And that's something I also saw with Barry Heffernan against Borris-Ileigh at the weekend, that these lads are just tanks. They're able to come out and put the team on the front foot straight away. So I'd say I agree with you there. And, you know, I've been calling for Paddy Cadell to start for the last year and a half for Tipperary. I think he's definitely a player we need to see more of. Just then to jump on to Killenaule, actually, just before we jump on to that, Loughmore, do you have them in the county shake-up? I mean, obviously they got unbelievably close last year.
I would, yeah, because I just think they know what it's all about. Like, I think of the second seeds, and so I think there's four. I think there's 4 clubs that can win it. I think it's Thurles, Killenaule, Loughmore, and Borris-Ileigh. I think they're the. I'd be surprised if the winner doesn't come from those 4. Like, so, I just think they've been there and done it. Even though I'm sure the closer they get to the final, Loughmore will be driven by what happened last year. And look, to have Liam McGrath back now, and we saw him coming off the bench now, scoring 2 points in play against Brackens. Like, that's not just a new player. That's a quality new player to have now. I'd be surprised if maybe by maybe if not quarterfinal, by the semi-final, that he's not straight into the starting lineup when he gets a few more weeks training under his belt, like so. And no, I think they'll be thereabouts.
Yeah, there's actually a question in here. Noel Cahill, just tuning in, and I'm not sure discussed, but from talking to a few Waterford and Carlow people, that issue with Colm Bonner was that he's a good number 2, but not a good number 1. So, we'll just take a little jump off the main road, which is Stock Club.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one to hear, but I don't know. These sort of Chinese whispers can become sort of like a truth, like that's an urban legend. All of a sudden, it's the truth. But like, he did unbelievably well with Carlow, and they're an unfashionable enough side, and he took them up to the next level. So look at what he did with Ballyhale as well. Some people that say, "Oh, they had the class, sure, they were always going to win an All Ireland." But sure, it's not like they won an All Ireland every single year. If it didn't require a good manager, you wouldn't even need manager. So I think he's definitely done enough to show that that's not necessarily the case. But I would say he needs the right team around him.
Oh, he does. He's done a lot. Like I could say, he's a number 2, but sure, he's been a number 2 more or less just at Waterford, and that was more or less as he was starting out as a coach with Gerald McCarthy and Justin McCarthy. Like so, since then, like, he took on the Wexford job. I don't think anybody could have managed Wexford maybe 9, 10, 11. They just didn't have the talent like back then. Look, I think going into that Ballyhale dressing room with Michael Fennelly, TJ Reid, Henry Shefflin, that would be daunting for a lot of people. Think, how am I going to get some of the greatest hurlers ever to listen to me and to get them to accept what I'm saying is the best for this team going forward? That couldn't have been easy. Like so, because what do you tell Henry Shefflin and TJ Reid that they don't, and Michael Fennelly that they don't already know, and that you're imagine saying, Henry, you're not doing that right, or you could actually do this better, like so. And somebody is like, that would have been as difficult as it would be going into Carlow. I know maybe in Carlow he's more hands-on with the coaching. I think in Tip he's gonna. I think that could be his difficult thing. How does he delegate? Because I know he does like getting the whistle in the lips and getting out into the field and doing drills. And I'm sure, I would think he'll probably find a way to do that to a certain. Maybe if just what you've most county training sessions are 60 to 90 minutes long, like. He might think, okay, if I just do a 10-minute section myself and let whoever he gets in as the coach do the rest, like just to keep himself in there, maybe make himself feel as if he's contributing that way, but still able to sit back for maybe the majority of the training session and observe, and maybe walk up to a player and grab him by the shoulder and maybe have a one-to-one maybe during it. Those sort of things as well. He's been coaching on the sideline from 25 years. He's seen it all. He'd be well able to delegate and maybe adapt his own style. I have no doubt about it.
Yeah, and he's very much known as a player's man. From anyone that I asked who should have a fair idea what he's like, that's what keeps coming back. So, I mean, that's obviously important. There's a huge amount of things that are important, but that's also definitely part of it. What about the county champions, Killenaule? I still have them as number 1 contenders to retain their county title this year. 16 points to 111 win over Mike Harkey. Borris isn't going to blow anyone away, but sure. The point is they were through already, so it wouldn't have concerned them too much. But to me, just watching them in the way that they're able to see games out, like tight games that we've seen both in the north and in the county, they always seem to find a way to have that answer when the pressure's on.
Yeah, no, definitely. And look, I suppose it was probably a nothing game really, but from reading the report, it was a very flat sort of a match between both sides. I know the weather in the middle of Sunday afternoon wasn't hectic, like, so probably didn't help the game either. But look, I'd agree with you. I even know what I'd say. Thurles have been the best team we've seen in the championship so far. Killenaule haven't been beaten yet, and I think until somebody beats them, they're still the team to beat. Maybe it's a contradiction. I think there's a difference between while I think Thurles are the favourites. I think until somebody beats Killenaule, they're still the team to beat. Like so, I just wonder, I don't know if Killenaule have cranked things up yet. Maybe over the next few weeks now, maybe they'll step up training. Like they have 2.5 weeks, and maybe they're probably maybe priming themselves to hit middle of October, and then we'll see Killenaule hit a new level. And they have Brian Mallochny back from injury now, so like he came off the bench on Sunday and got himself a couple of points, so like he'll be a big addition to that forward line as well. So look, I was agreed. Look, it was a job done on Sunday. They're in the quarterfinals as top seeds, still unbeaten in all championship matches this year. So, look, I think we'll need to see a little more from them. Maybe I don't think we've seen the best of them compared to last year, but I definitely think there's more in them.
And do you know what? I'm just wondering about their record over the last couple of years. And if I look at the championship last year, so they won 2 and drew 1 of their games. That one against JK Brackens, the first out, and they went on to beat Roscrea and Drom-Inch after that in the group, and fairly bet Drom-Inch well enough. So they won out of that. So they won 2 out of 3 in the group, and then they won their 3 knockout games. So that's won 5 out of 6. Then the year before, they won their 3 group games, and they won a couple of knockout games before losing the final to Borris-Ileigh, where I think they left a lot of scores on the behind them early on in the game. So this is a team that's won all their group games this year, 3. They won a couple of their games last year. They won their knockout games. This is a team that seems to more or less, they've been winning pretty much all their games in the last few years in the championship.
Yeah, if you go back
through the roof.
You go back to 2019, from 2019-20 and this year, the only match they've lost is the 2019 county final to Borris-Ileigh, including divisional championship. That must be the guts of 20 matches, 20, even over 20 games. Like, and look, when you get in the habit of winning, winning's a habit. Like, and when you know how to dig out tight games, and look, they're very, very good at digging out tight games. And like, when we know come the knockout stage of a championship, if match goes into the last 15 minutes, that know-how of winning tight games will be massive. And that, I suppose that's the area where Thurles Sarsfields will be tested. Like, what happens? Like, they've won their matches all this year pretty comfortable. They've had more or less had them in hand at the second water break. There's going to come a time in the knockout stages where 5 minutes to go, there could be a point or two up or down, and do they have the know-how to get over the line? And in those sort of games, you'd fancy Killenaule because they know how to get it done. Like, so, still very, very, very hard to beat.
Yeah, I'm sure any of the second seeds wouldn't be overly delighted to be getting Killenaule. Then Borris-Ileigh against Nenagh. This game was on TG Carr, I have to say, and largely down to the weather and probably a lot of wides early on in the game. It was a dour enough game, and Nenagh were desperate, really. Had 4 points scored after something like 45 minutes. Yeah, like, how do you sum up that performance by Nenagh? We'll come to Borris-Ileigh, but geez, I thought that was desperate from Nenagh.
Yeah, it was very disappointing. I don't know, from the moment Mikey Heffernan missed a very comfortable free or scoreable free by his standards after about 2 or 3 minutes. You said, God, is this going to be one of those days? As the pressure got to them, have they psyched themselves up too much? And like we've seen it, sometimes you can overpsych yourself up, and then you go out into the pitch and nothing happens. And look, the weather was like about 15 minutes before throwing, it absolutely let rip down into the ground. Like, it wasn't just drizzly rain; it was horrible, heavy, cold rain. Like, it was. But look, it was the same for both sides. And look, it was very similar in a way to how Nenagh lost to Loughmore Castleiney in the county semi-final last year. Just never got to the pitch of the game. Never looked, even from an early stage. Never got going, and that. Borris-Ileigh didn't do anything fancy. I don't think Borris-Ileigh got out of second or third gear. Like, I don't think they played overly well themselves. They did enough to win. I suppose Borris-Ileigh, they went back to basics in some way, like the way they set up their defence. They moved Kieran Cohen back to full back. They put Brendan at wing back with Dan in the centre and Ray in the other field. They moved Kieran Maher back from corner back up to midfield, sort of a third midfielder. It just seemed to suit them. They put the twin towers of the two Kennys inside, and that's what they played the conditions well. They knew well if they had to go long, if you had the two Kennys inside, they'll cause damage. And look, Conor got 4 points, and Niall got 1-1, 1-5 between the two of them. And look, Eddie Ryan continued to do what he did. He got 9 points again. So Borris-Ileigh did what they had to do. I could think they'd say themselves they can play an awful lot better, but look, it was sufficient for the day because Nenagh were just so poor. Just a disappointing the way the year has petered out for Nenagh. I saw them against Killenaule in the North semi-final a few weeks ago, and I thought, geez, they seem to be, they were hurled very, very well that day, even though losing, and some nice hurlers, but just maybe the pressure comes on again. I suppose that's the one thing that's always thrown at them. And look, I suppose it's not a criticism; it's an observation. It's a reality that when the pressure comes on, I thought maybe as they were going to be underdogs last weekend. I thought that would make them very dangerous. Because when their favourites tag on, sometimes they tend to fall under the pressure, and it just happened again. It just didn't offer anything. Like they only scored 1 point from play in the second half. The rest were Barry Heffernan and Jake Morris frees. So hard to know. Like being at the game, like it seemed like a very united panel. Even in the last after the water break, like they were very loud. Every one of them trying to get themselves going. Like, but just for whatever reason, it just didn't come out in terms of performance.
Yeah, I think they needed to start well. Like,
Yeah.
go back to last year when they beat Thurles. Weren't they something like 3-7 to a point up early in the game?
Yeah.
And they only finished with 3-12.
Yeah.
So they're sort of team that's, I don't know, is there a lack of confidence in there somewhere? Because like you look at some of the players they have, and lads that aren't current county players but previously have been involved with the county or at different ages, you would have thought this is going to be a formidable team, but for whatever reason they came up short. And like Borris-Ileigh weren't anywhere near Borris-Ileigh's best. But the thing with Borris is, there's going to be a certain element of work rate. There's enough quality there that a few lads will step up with scores, whether it's Jerry Kelly, whether it's Conor Kenny. I wonder would Conor Kenny be looked at by Colm Bonner? I mean, he is scoring for fun and he's able to win that high ball. I'm not entirely sure if he would, but the man is saying he's not lifting plenty of white flags.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. I think he's had 2, if not 3, stabs at senior intercounty at this stage, and he hasn't really he hasn't really made the grade. So I'd be surprised. I'd be a big fan of Kevin Maher, even though he had a quiet game. I just like he's a good stick man. I think he'd offer a lot. I think the one guy I know he's been at, I think from what I've heard of Borris-Ileigh, he has no real interest in playing
Seamus Burke.
Seamus Burke. I thought he was my man of the match. He was super on Sunday. Like, and he's everything you want in a cornerback and a defensive player. So I don't know whether Colm is able to twist lads' arms, but God, he was very, very good again.
I believe he was once asked to go in with the minors, but he was doing silage, so he couldn't go in. So I'm pretty sure that's true, but some of the Borris lads might comment in and let us know for sure. Comments in here from Flannery Shane Edward. Thought Barry Heffernan was very wasteful with his distribution. He can win a lot of ball, but his outpass can be sloppy, as was the case against Waterford. Still has class. I thought he was very good. I thought it kind of summed up Nennagh's issues, that he had to go back and try and curb the threat of the Kennys.
Yeah.
My take on it is he was playing the half back line, then had to be moved back. Sure, like, that's the last thing Nenagh want. Between that and missing all the frees and the shot, like they shot themselves in the foot really. Just with the wides.
Like Barry had a very good year with Tip. I think that the Waterford match was probably his poorest performance of the year. It's not a true reflection of Barry. I think a lot of Tip players maybe were jittery in terms of using the ball that day, and they overshot their passes and stuff. Like generally, he's very, very accurate in how he passes the ball. But I thought, he tried to carry the fight as much as he can. But when Barry goes out of the half back line, as Nenagh had to do, like the Conor and Niall Kenny were really causing Dara Quinn and the boys in the full back line problems. They had to put a big physical guy in there to try and curb him. And it hurt Nenagh because they really missed his ability. A lot like Paddy Cadell, if he gets a ball, he can break a tackle and get forward, and he can also pick off a point or two from long range as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. So for Borris-Ileigh then, back in contention really. Obviously still reigning Munster champions. Can I still say that for Borris-Ileigh? Yeah, well, Niall Kenny got the goal. Like JD, quietish again. Yeah. But like his burst and run, it just shows if Borris-Ileigh can get him. I mean, and maybe this is the thing. There's still probably not the right balance between long ball. And I can understand, Dan McCormick is covering the back line. He gets onto so much ball and brilliantly does it and really shores up the back line for Borris-Ileigh. But I wonder, is there enough emphasis in then working the ball out from the back? Now, it might be tough in conditions like that. But if you want to bring in Kevin Maher into the game a little bit more around the middle sector, if you want to bring Jerry Kelly and JD into the game a little bit more, it's probably just finding that balance.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose it's like they seem to settle on the two-man full forward line and Eddie Ryan sort of given a free role. You think at his age and he's so light, he probably doesn't need to be pigeonholed in a corner where he could maybe get a corner back sticking to him like you. He probably needs to rove around all right. But then I would think maybe Devaney probably needs that too. And look, we saw I wouldn't say he's a frustrating player, but like we saw when he got the ball, he was the reason the goal was scored. He got space and he took on his man, forced the shot, and good save by Mark Chute, and Niall Kenny put it in. But where do you put Devaney to get the play best out of him? Because we all know his ability, but it's like we saw, it's the inconsistency about him is the thing that may worry me at the moment, because we all know he's a very, very good ability. Like, so,
Yeah.
but you don't know from one game to the next where he's like. I'd say he has unbelievable self-belief in himself. Like, it's just, but it's getting that consistency is probably will take him to the next level. Like, so.
Yeah, well, I'd love to see ball going short to him at times when possible, and obviously you can't always do that. And like as I said, the conditions were dreadful for that game, so maybe it was hard to go short. But if he can turn and go at a man, and it's sort of like, you know, when Cian Lynch gets the ball, he's always looking to see who can he put through for goal, or who can he kind of draw a man and put through. I'd love to see JD doing that, because we can know he can burst past the man, but if you can have him there turning, going at lads and drawing lads, so to put someone else through. Like, there's times when the scores will just open up for him anyway. But I'd just love to see that sprint at every time there's a ruck for a ball, be sprinting towards it, so it either squirts out to you or someone hands it out to you, or maybe you just win it yourself. But I'd just say get to as many rucks as possible and always just turn and go at your man. But anyway, easy save from here. Martin Tour says Borris-Ileigh top 4, just 9 points in the first half against a very under par Nenagh. Presume Nenagh can't be considered good enough going forward to win or even compete in the big game. Or I'm not sure if he's talking about Borris-Ileigh or Nenagh there. Now, comma might help me out. Mark Corcoran, how will Killenaule handle the worsening weather going forward? Borris loved that weather. And just, in light of their 319 to 218 win over Rossgrey, without Niall O'Mara and without Cian Darcy, we probably can't read too much into that game, can we?
Probably not. No, I think it's a very, very good win, without two of their marquee players, like so. And look, Seamus Hennessy still had another brilliant performance. Like, you would have thought maybe when Rossgrey went ahead and with 15 minutes to go, you said, okay, like, sure, Killenaule have nothing to play for here. They might just get through to the very end, hopefully not pick up a few injuries. But no, they came back strong at the very end and they won the game. I think that says a lot about their mentality. I think they'll be very, very hard to beat. Like, they're not a team built on flashy players. It's just work rate, unity. Everybody's buying into what's being asked of them. So the Mark asked about the weather. I think the slower. I think it'll even play into Killerwane's hands. Like, so. I think they'll be very, very hard to beat. Whether they're good enough to win the whole championship, I'm not so sure. But I tell you, whoever beats them will earn it if they are beaten by the end of the county championship.
Okay, we'll jump on to the Seamus O'Riordan Cup and just run through the results there. Group 1, Carrick Swans and drew with Killenaule B, so 15 points each. Burgess, they beat Thurles Sarsfields B, 17 points to 12. In Group 2, Clonakilty, they beat Newport by 6 points. Definitely one you want to talk about there, because not many were expecting that. Silvermines beat Temple-Derry 19-14. Group 3, big win for Ballina over Sean Tracy's Killenaule. They saw off Gurtnahoe Glengool. And in Group 4, Cashel King Cormac's a team we've been looking for to make an impact this year. They beat your own Laura, and Portrue, they beat St. Mary's. So if you want to take it up there on one or two of those teams.
Yeah, I suppose Group 4 was a couple of very tight groups. I suppose Group 4 was the one that I suppose you had that Portrue being eliminated on scores for, like, themselves and St. Mary's were tied on +4, and the score difference Cashel on +5. That's how tight that group was. And I remember I was at the Laura Cashel game, and when Laura scored a goal with about in the 59th minute to bring it back to 2 points, and I think the match in Borris-Ileigh had finished. So when that goal went in, Cashel went from being top of the group to being out of the championship. So Cashel had to score 2 points after that to win by at least 4. It was unreal. Like, and Cashel were fully deserved winners. It was cruel the way Portrue lost out like that. They won against a very, very good St. Mary's team. So look, you 3 teams separated by 1 point in score difference, and St. Mary's ended up pipping Portrue because they scored 1 more point than them in the whole championship. So just so tight. But that was the brilliant thing about the group stage, like some of the groups, and they're very, very tight. And I say I was at the Cashel game, deserving winners like Ger Brown, 8 points from play, and look, probably took and really announced himself in the Cashel colours, and looks like a guy that maybe the bit was coming back between his teeth again on the field. Like, he was just unplayable at times. Like, admittedly,
Where did he play now? Did he play midfield, half forward?
He played in the. Let me see. I'll pull up
I'm putting you on the spot there
He played it when they went down to 14 men in the start of the second half. They put him in full forward, and he started midfield, but they put him full forward at the start of the second half when they went down to 14 men, and he sort of ran the channels brilliantly into the corners. They played it brilliantly, and like he got 4, if not 5 points in play in the second half. Like, they just used the ball very, very well. And like, but for Paddy Redden in the goals, Ger probably would have had 2 more goals to go with it. Like, probably a 5-point win. If they won by 8 or 9, it probably would have been a fair reflection of the dominance they had on the day. Just Laura, like I said in a lot of other matches, just haven't hit the heights of last year. Now injuries are starting to come against us. So in relegation now and having to play Newport in 2 weeks' time, and probably some of those injuries are not going to clear up. So it's just about staying up now at this stage. Look, Newport got to a semi-final last year, lost to Mullinahone narrowly. They're finding themselves in relegation now, and after losing to Clonakilty, which would have been a surprise result, was Newport bet them comfortably in the championship last year. This year, Clonakilty turned them over with a strong second half performance, and I suppose it was a disappointing thing I would have thought from Newport is that when the pressure came on in the second half and they fell behind, maybe I would have thought having had a more talented forward line, they just didn't respond. And look, you're going to have one of Newport or Lura are going to be in the relegation final guaranteed. Like, so it's going to be those relegation semis. Like, as I said, with the Senior A, it's going to be so interesting. You have Burgess and Sean Tracy's in the other semi-final as well. So, like, you could have, like, you're going to have one team that you're going to have one of 4 teams that maybe didn't see themselves being involved in relegation at the start of the year. One will probably end up being relegated. Like, so, and you think Sean Tracy's, they were in the relegation final last year against Ballingarry. You probably think they have a small bit of advantage, so they know what they faced into. They were involved in that relegation last year. They know what's coming. Whereas maybe the other 3 would have been thinking, God, we're probably looking at winning that championship. So it's the mentality thing. How do you cope with the disappointment of being sucked into something that you didn't think you were going to be involved in the first place?
Can I just jump back to Cashel King Cormac's again? I'm wondering, the likes of Devin Ryan, was he playing? How did he go? Was Ryan O'Dwyer starting?
Yeah, he did. Ryan played wing forward quite enough. Devin picked up a bit of an injury in the first half. Didn't look like he could run it off, and he was taken off early in the second half. So, but look, they said they've loads of starting. They had Conor O'Dwyer playing in the forward line. Ross Bonner in the full forward line was very good. Cathal Quinn was very good. Very, very even team. I thought Owen Connolly, very solid in centre back. But I suppose then they put him up in the forward line when they were chasing a couple of points towards the end, and he got one brilliant point on the wing. Like, it really it's like a golf shot you see towards the end. He judged the win brilliantly, just curved it back inside the far post. Like, and a lot like Cadell and a lot like Barry Heffernan. And I just like the leadership qualities in Connolly. He probably has a bit more to go in development, but I think he's, in terms of trajectory, he's doing everything right, what's been asked of him. Like, Cashel have drawn Clonakilty in the quarter final. I think that on talent they should win that, but like if they just look at Clonakilty like maybe Newport did, thought we should be beating them, they'll be beaten. Like, you've got to take each team on its merits. Like, and look, I thought Thurles Sarsfields were strong. They ended up losing to Burgess last weekend. So, like, and Templederry, who were going well, ended up losing to Silvermine. So, like, I'm not even going to risk trying to pick a winner for that into that Seamus Arena, because Templederry and Thurles had nothing to play for last weekend, but you would have thought a team that were going to win the championship would have said, okay, we've nothing to play for, but look at what Killenaule did. They had nothing to play for. They still went out and won the game, whereas Thurles and Templederry went out and played. Templederry were missing a few players, but I think a champion team goes out even in the dead rubber, takes the match on its merits and goes out and wins it. Like, so that leaves it wide open. Like, an interesting one for me would be Killenaule, like, because they're in a Dan Breen preliminary quarter final. So what's their priority for training the next few weeks? Will that Loughmore game for them be a hindrance, or will it be will they see it as, okay, it's a great tune-up game for playing Killenaule and for Dan Breen? Well, what's their priority over the next few weeks? Personally, I would think that Dan Breen is the Oreen quarter-final would be priority, because I don't think they can win a county senior championship, whereas maybe winning a Dan Breen and getting up to the higher level next year is probably what they would need to be focusing on.
But at least it's an exposure to the level of intensity that they wouldn't have played against in Seamus Oreen. To be fair, all season, even before it started, you said trying to call this Seamus Oreen was going to be a bit of a disaster, and it's proven that way. I'll run through the intermediate results. So Group 1, Borris-Ileigh drew with Drom-Inch's B team. Moyne-Temple Toohey, they beat Kappa Whitewell. Mullinahone in Group 2, they beat Ballybacon Grange by 12. Knockavilla Kickham saw off Carrick Davins by 9, is it? No, actually 12 also.
Yeah.
Group 3, Golden Kilfeacle beat Borlahan Duala 1-9-6. Kilsheal and Kilcash beat Moyle Rovers. And then in Group 4, Ballynahinch beat Arravale Rovers, and Ballingarry, they saw off Shannon Rovers. So anything that stands out for you in intermediate?
Not particularly. I think, I suppose from our point of view, Borris-Ileigh missing out would have been probably a surprise. I think there's a very good hurlers in that team, young up and coming team. Just, I suppose maybe it says a lot about Drom-Inch, like that their second team is so competitive, and maybe there's a couple of players in that team maybe should have been hurling senior this year. I think I said it a few weeks ago. Maybe Drom they have so many guys of a certain level to pick from. Maybe some of them could fall back into their intermediate team, and some could maybe move up to their senior team, and they wouldn't miss a beat. I think, look, at this stage, I think Moyne-Temple Toohey, Knockavilla Kickhams, they would be in my fair. I think Kilsheal and Kilcash will take beat. I think they'll have a similar issue to Loughmore Castleiney will at senior level, whereas they'll be expected to at least get to a semi-final in senior football as well. But like, I would think, if you're a club that's winning games week on week, where you're playing hurling and football, I don't think you could see, like, if you're riding the crest of a wave and you're winning matches in both could just don't see one as a hindrance to the other. Just take it as, just ride the wave of the feel good factor, winning matches as far as you can take it. So I think Mullinahone will be dangerous there too, even as a second seed. I know they have to play Kappa White in a preliminary quarter final, but I would fancy they'd probably have too much for Kappa White there, and Kappa would then fall into the relegation semi-finals, even though to finish bottom of their group, they won the West. But like, I suppose the worrying thing for the West hurling that you have Kappa White and Arravale Rovers in the relegation semi-finals again, even though Kappa White won the West title. Like, so just so you maybe while Cashel are on the rise, maybe in terms of the top end, that you saw Galty going down junior last year, that I'm sure the West won't want to lose anymore.
Yeah, without doubt.
For the guy Kappa would always, I mean, when you were growing up, it would have been always a traditionally strong hurling club in West Tipperary.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so that's it for Tippcast this week. Don't forget to pick up the paper, and we'll be looking forward to the quarterfinals when we're talking again next week, Shane.
Yep, talk to you then.
Welcome to Tippcast by the Nenagh Guardian.